I recently set myself on an adventure through the wonders of the world that is Studio Ghibli. As I watched these films, I found myself immersed in a universe filled with magical creatures, breathtaking landscapes, and of course, the unforgettable characters that have become a hallmark of the Ghibli storytelling. But as I followed these characters through their wacky and surreal adventures, something stood out to me. What makes Ghibli characters so relatable? After all, they're not real. As much as I love to see spirit worlds and giant forests, they're just animated figures living in fantastical worlds. And yet, I found myself connecting with them, feeling what they felt on a deep, personal level. Whether it was Chihiro's struggle in Spirited Away or Nausicaa's desire for peace, there was something about their struggles, their growth, and their complexities that felt so incredibly human. So what is it about these characters, living these fake lives, that draw us in and make us see a bit of ourselves in them? To answer that, we need to dive deeper into the psychology of Ghibli characters because while their world may be fantastical, their emotions and their journeys feel very real. I'm not going to pretend that I love Chihiro's character right from the start. As much as I'll admit that Spirited Away is one of the best Ghibli films, I had to warm up to Chihiro. Looking back, I realized that if I watched this film as 10 years old, I probably would have been much more impatient with her. But watching it again as an adult, I began to understand her better. In the beginning, Chihiro comes across as whiny and insecure, someone who is scared of change. From the very first moment we meet her, it's clear that she is reluctant to face the unknown, much like any of us, when we're forced into uncomfortable situations. Chihiro represents that part of us that resists change and wants to stay in our comfort zones, where everything feels familiar and safe. This feeling of resistance to change is something that psychologists often point out during a critical stage of development, especially in adolescence. It's when individuals face new and often uncomfortable experiences that challenge their sense of self and require them to adapt. Chihiro at the start of her journey embodies the confusion and fear that we all experience when the world around us starts to shift dramatically, pushing us out of our comfort zones. For Chihiro, this is a pivotal moment in her life, much like it is for anyone undergoing a significant life change. As the story progresses, though, we see a powerful shift in Chihiro. She starts off as someone who is overwhelmed and uncertain, but by the end of the film, she is transformed into a more confident, resourceful individual who confronts her fears head-on. This transformation reflects what psychologists call self-efficiency, the belief in one's abilities to overcome challenges and handle difficult situations. Chihiro's growth is a perfect example of how we can gradually build confidence and resilience when faced with adversity. It's not a quick process, but over time, with the right mindset, we start to realize that we are all capable of more than we initially thought. Many of us can relate to that feeling of being overwhelmed, especially when faced with a new chapter in our life. Whether it's starting a new school, moving to a new place, or facing a personal challenge, the sense of helplessness can be paralyzing. But as we see in Chihiro's journey, the key to overcoming these challenges is taking small, consistent steps forward. It's not about rushing through the hard times. It's about learning how to cope and pushing through even when it feels impossible. The process of building resilience and self-confidence often involves stepping into the unknown, just as Chihiro does in Spirited Away. For me, Chihiro's journey resonates deeply because it mirrors a personal experience I went through. When I was 13, my parents made the decision to move across the country, and I had to completely restart my life. At the time, I felt invincible. Nothing could stop me, or so I thought. But suddenly, without any say in the matter, my life was uprooted, and everything I knew was thrown into chaos. I felt exactly like Chihiro at the beginning of her journey. Helpless, lost, confused, and wishing I could go back to the way things were. I didn't have the magical world of spirits to help me navigate this change, but the feeling of being stuck and uncertain was all too real. My growth wasn't as fast as Chihiro's, and there wasn't a quick transformation that made everything better. But over time, I took things one step at a time. I adapted. I made new friends, and eventually, I found my footing in this new chapter of my life. Looking back, I see that I was learning to build my own self-efficiency, much like Chihiro does. With each small success, I became more confident in my ability to handle whatever came next. It wasn't always easy, but I kept moving forward, step by step, just like Chihiro did, in the face of her own challenges. Chihiro's journey shows us how difficult change can be, but it also shows how we can grow from those tough times. It's a reminder that no matter how overwhelming things may seem at first, we all have the ability to adapt and overcome. Change isn't always easy, and it's rarely quick, but as long as we keep taking those baby steps and stay resilient, we can come out on the other side stronger. And just like Chihiro, we may look back and realize just how much we've grown through the process. When we first meet Nausicaä, we're immediately introduced to her as a deeply empathetic character, one who values peace and strives to understand and protect the creatures of her world. Empathy, as a psychological trait, is central to her character. It's the ability to recognize, understand, and share the feelings of others, and it's something that's often rare in today's world. Nausicaä feels for the creatures that others see as threats, and she works tirelessly to create harmony between humans and nature. Her ability to empathize with others, even in the face of adversity, is a cornerstone of her psychological growth throughout the story. Nausicaa's journey, however, is more than just one of empathy. It's one of healing and resilience, dealing both personal and collective trauma. Living in a war-torn world, she's witnessed the devastating consequences of humanity's disregard for the environment. Her story isn't just about saving the world, it's about healing from the pain caused by others' actions, while also trying to preserve her own humanity. The inner conflict mirrors the psychological concept of moral development, the process by which individuals develop their sense of right and wrong, and ultimately how they apply that understanding in a world filled with complexity and uncertainty. Nausicaa's role as a leader and protector challenges her to maintain empathy and compassion, even as she faces overwhelming circumstances. Psychologically speaking, this reflects the balance between self-care and other care, the idea that helping others can be both healing and exhausting. Nausicaä embodies the strength it takes to care for others. Even when you're grappling with your own pain, it's a balance that many of us struggle with. How do we help others while also caring for our own well-being? Often we find ourselves torn between the desire to heal others and need to heal ourselves. For me personally, Nausicaa's journey is something I find incredibly relatable. I've often found myself in situations where I put others' needs before my own, sometimes to my detriment. Helping others is something that feels natural to me, but there has been moments when doing so has led to personal burnout or emotional strain. Nausicaa's empathy teaches us that there is strength in caring for others, but also a need to recognize when we must protect ourselves in the process. She demonstrates that emotional strength doesn't mean sacrificing your own well-being. It means understanding when to step back, heal, and then re-engage with the world around you. This psychological balancing act is something that resonates with many people in today's world, where we often face external pressures to be helpful, to lead, or to be strong for others. But Nausicaä shows us that leadership doesn't mean losing sight of yourself. In fact, it's through caring for yourself that you can better care for others, just as she learns throughout the course of the film. Nausicaa's journey reflects the complex psychological process of growing from a place of personal trauma to one of healing, responsibility, and empathy. As she grows, she teaches us that empathy can be a source of strength and a tool for healing, whether it's applied to ourselves or to the world around us. She also shows us that it's possible to navigate overwhelming challenges without losing your humanity. It often requires us to look beyond ourselves and take responsibility for the well-being of others. As we look at both Chihiro and Nausicaa's journey, it becomes clear that their stories, though different in context and scope, share underlying psychological themes that speak to the universal human experience. Both characters embark on transformative journeys where they confront fear, pain, and uncertainty in order to grow stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. For Chihiro, her development is primarily about building self-confidence and resilience. She starts off as a scared, insecure child, overwhelmed by the challenges and changes in her world. But by the end of Spirited Away, she is transformed into someone who can face adversity head-on. Armed with the resourcefulness and inner strength she didn't know she had, her journey is a reflection of how we all, at some point, must navigate the difficult transition from childhood to adolescence, from dependence to independence. It's about learning we are capable of more than we initially believe, and find the courage to push through when life feels overwhelming. Nausicaa's journey, on the other hand, is rooted in empathy and moral development. While she faces similar challenges, fear, trauma, and overwhelming responsibility, her growth involves understanding the broader world around her and learning how to balance her compassion for others with the harsh realities of the world she inhabits. Nausicaa's emotional journey is about reconciling her desire for peace with the violence and destruction that surrounds her. She learns that healing the world requires not only understanding others, but also understanding herself, her own limits, her vulnerability, and the importance of maintaining her inner peace even when external chaos is all around her. What connects these two journeys, Chihiro's and Nausicaa's, is the concept of self-discovery through struggle. Both characters are faced with daunting challenges that force them to confront their own vulnerabilities, fears, and uncertainties. What makes them so relatable is that as they grow, we see ourselves in them. We too are often faced with overwhelming challenges, trauma, and fear, but through perseverance, reflection, and inner strength, we can find the courage to grow, adapt, and ultimately change our worlds, just as they do. Another common theme is how both characters' growths involved a shift in perspective. For Chihiro, the shift is about seeing her fears as challenges to be overcome rather than obstacles to be avoided. For Nausicaä, it's about recognizing the complexities of human nature and the environment, and understanding that peace isn't just about stopping conflicts, but about fostering understanding and empathy, even in the face of destruction. Both characters learn to take responsibility, not just for their actions, but for a greater good of the world they inhabit. These stories, while rooted in different psychological processes, both underscore a fundamental truth: growth. Whether it's about self-confidence, empathy, or resilience, it's through the adversity that they face that Chihiro and Nausicaä discover their true strengths and transform. Their experience mirror the psychological process of post-traumatic growth, the idea that after experiencing significant trauma or challenges, we can emerge stronger, more compassionate, and more attuned to our place in the world. Just like Chihiro and Nausicaä, we all go through struggles and face moments of uncertainty. Life is constantly changing, and sometimes we feel we're not ready for it. It's about learning to face our fears, to tap into our own resourcefulness, and to find empathy, both for ourselves and others. Whether we're navigating the challenges of adolescence, taking on new responsibilities, or simply trying to figure out where we fit in the world, these Ghibli characters show us that it's okay to feel overwhelmed, but it's also important to remember we have the capacity to grow, to heal, and to find purpose in the chaos. So when we look at these iconic Ghibli characters, Chihiro, Nausicaä, and even others across the Studio Ghibli universe, it's clear that their stories are more than just whimsical adventures or fantasy tales. They are psychological odysseys that speak to the heart of what it means to be human. They remind us that growth is messy, painful, and often confusing, but it's also beautiful, empowering, and deeply rewarding. It's a reminder that just like Chihiro and Nausicaä, we have the strength to face our challenges and emerge stronger on the other side. In the end, these characters' journeys aren't just fictional, they're a reflection of our own. That's what makes them so deeply relatable. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.